I'm Ken Ellis of Ellison Machine Shop. Y'all know me. I'm your engine guy. Today is going to be our third and hopefully final video that we're going to do where I address the countrywide, worldwide lifter failure issue that we've been having. This has been an industry problem. It is all across our country. I'm getting reports from all around the world about premature lifter and camshaft failure, especially hydraulic. And the only reason I'm having this third video, which I was not going to do, the reason I'm having this third video here today is because I have a respected engine builder that I have spoke to that has a completely different point of view and does not believe in what I'm saying. And I am going to explain to you why that he feels differently. He has a valid point of view that I hope I'm wrong, but he has a valid point of view that I'm going to put in front of all of you in the sense of just being fair and balanced with reporting information to you. I've had lots of people want to give me all kinds of advice of how I can chase after all this and spend all my time and effort and doing Rockwell hardness testing and many, many other things that it would take time and effort and my money to do to try to isolate where the problem's coming from. In my heart, I already know where the problem's coming from. And to be honest with you guys, I've said this before, and I explained this in my last two videos. I don't have time to do more than I'm already doing right now. These videos they come out few and far between because they are very time consuming. Now, I have another gentleman that I want you to know, and I'm not giving you his name because I don't want anybody coming to him with questions and problems like you guys do with me. Besides that, I didn't ask his permission to use his name, and I'm out of respect to him, I'm certainly not going to say nothing. But I want you to know that this gentleman has a completely opposite point of view than myself. His opinions are based off of his own experiences and his own success and failure rates, all the engines that he works on and so forth. So he's a respected builder in the community. I have talked to him before. We follow each other on social media. I know the gentleman. I know of him. He knows of me. We've talked a couple of times. We're not colleagues as far as we don't, we've never been together socially. I want you to know that everything he said to me has been said to me respectfully, professionally, articulate. And basically, and he didn't say this to me, basically he's saying I'm doing shoddy work, I'm making mistakes, I'm not, and he said this very kindly. So I'm telling you guys, do not post comments that are disparaging or insulting to him in any way. And that's why I'm not telling you his name, because I know a lot of you guys, you follow everything I do, and I know, and you've already jumped on people who say things about me sometimes. I don't want you being rude to this man. Depend upon your comments, they'll be either deleted or you might even be banned for life if you're rude to this man. He has his own professional opinion, and he's certainly entitled to it. It's different than mine, and I respect everything he said, or I wouldn't be on here. I wouldn't be on here repeating what he said. On top of that, I've had 2 or 3 other guys that I don't know personally, but I've heard what they had to say. They were very intelligent, and I respect everything they had to say. They also agree with him that this is not a failure problem. They believe it to be an installation problem by the builders that are putting these engines together. So basically, they feel that all of us guys who have experienced any cam and lifter failure, that it's on us, it's not on the product. So having said that, obviously, I feel differently, and if you want to know more about that, you need to go in and watch my last 2 videos. I want to tell you guys, first-time viewers, I'm not an entertainer. I'm an educator. I'm a shop teacher. If you're not really interested in learning how to build a better engine, then my videos are probably boring to you. Don't tell me to speed things up. I have a lot of information. We have to squeeze it in. You're either interested in in-depth engine building or you are not interested. If you're looking for entertainment, you need to go to one of the videos where guys do dyno pulls and they spin wheels and all that kind of stuff. This ain't that kind of page. So anyhow, guys, First of all, as you all know, I have spoken about lifters not just wiping out, but bleeding down. We've had problems with hydraulic lifters, both flat tappet and both roller. And the ones that aren't wiping out, the flat tappets are wiping out and bleeding down, and the ones that are hydraulic rollers are just bleeding down. I want to say before I get into this gentleman's opinion and start telling you what he has expressed to me, that we have had, over the past year, I've had 1,000 messages, telephone calls, emails, on and on and on and on, with people asking me my opinion on things and comments on all the pages that I do, over and over, that they're experiencing this. I've had several people say to me, well, if you're not going to put in the work and Rockwell hardness test the lifters and so forth and the camshafts, you have no right saying this. And you know what? I'll go along with that. But I'm going to tell you flat out, because I'm not pulling any punches. I don't have to get out of bed in the morning. I can lay in my house with a charged cell phone, and I can look and see the amount of problems that are being posted on every single page, and the amount of questions that I have to come to the conclusion that something wrong is going on. And obviously, guys, I've done more than that. I'll just, one more time, I said in the other two videos, I've been online with major lifter companies. I've been online with companies that are the major companies around for creating oils and lubricants, who make all the really great ZDP, all the break-in oil, the greatest stuff on the planet. I've talked to these people. And the lifter companies, the camshaft companies, have admitted that they're having lifter issues. And I know for a fact that we have large warehouse distributors who buy large quantity of lifters from the manufacturers, and now they've told me that their invoices now say that they will not stand behind the lifters, that they're not warranting them. Now, I'm not saying that's every company, because I haven't talked to everybody on the planet, but this is a very real thing that's happening right now. But let's get into this, the opposing point of view to, it's either product failure or it's the installers. It's the installer's issue. So I have personally done everything that I have always done on my engine for over a 40-year career. I've had almost zero cam and lifter failures in my entire career, even including with what's hitting us recently. I probably can count all of the lifter failures that we had in the first 20 to 25 years of my career on one hand, and 3 of them, pretty sure they were the problems, they were the fault of the customers. Other 2 could have been us, probably. Actually, 1 was positively me, and the other was probably not the fault of the customer. Over the next few years of my career, I've had a few more, and 50-50 on whether it was us, whether or not it was a customer issue, whether it was just plain product malfunction. But in my entire career, including what we've been through here now, personal hands-on 12 to 15 cams tops over a 40-plus year career, that's a lot of engines. Now, I've been flooded by other people that are having issues. So it's either product problem or it's installer problem. So what I'm getting ready to tell you right now is the methods that another gentleman uses, and he has stated that he has had 0 failure. And I do not disbelieve him, not even a little bit. He's a credible guy. He's a helpful person. Never met him face to face. I'm sure we get along just fine. He has no problem, so I believe him. That's why I'm standing here right now telling you what he told me. Now, in his shop, when an engine comes in the door, they take a block, and the first thing they do is all of the basic blueprinting steps. Of course, they do everything else that the rest of us do. They clean, they pressure test, they magnaflux, they're going to clean the block thoroughly. But when they get in, all of their engines that they're putting cams in like this, they are going through the blueprinting process of taking the block and going through and remachining the camshaft tunnel. The camshaft tunnel is the place where you slide the cam through into the cam bearings. Well, that tunnel needs to be machined specifically in a very exact place in order to be correct in relationship to all the other parts. Now, a lot of people don't even know that, but that sometimes can be out. And when you're building very high-end engines, that cam tunnel is machined and in relationship to being parallel with the crankshaft, being parallel to the deck surfaces, making sure that that everything is straight and square. Now, you can do that by boring it oversized, and there are some very specific, expensive equipment that's used in order to set up and do that. That is not a job for just anybody. That is a very high-end operation, and this gentleman does it, and I believe exactly what he says. I believe he does it to 100% efficiency. And then after the camshaft tunnel is machined, so it'll be machined and it'll either go to a larger cam or larger cam bearings. After that it's just like line hone in a block. But after that is done and the camshaft tunnel is corrected and parallel to the block, the next step is that they go in and they index all the lifters. And what is meant by that is that when the cam lobe, say, is up like this and the lifter is sitting on it, they are machining the lifter bore where the lifter rides up and down it so that it is in perfect alignment. It sits on the camshaft front to back, exactly where it belongs. It's not leaning left, right, front, or back. It sits exactly where it belongs so that the lifter itself touches the camshaft precisely. And on some blocks, I'm sure that's not necessary. In other blocks, you can go through and use oversized lifters where applicable. And where you can't get oversized lifters, they bore out the lifter bores and they put in bronze bushings and then they remachine the bushings. So they basically sleeve it. Kind of the same thing like when we go through and we bore blocks and we correct cylinders and so forth. What I just explained to you is a great method. And I'm sure this gentleman, everything he does, just like he says, when he told me that he has no problems, I believe him 110%. That's why I insist upon nobody giving him any negative comments here because he's a first-class engine builder. And that's why I'm not telling you his name, because I'm not dragging him into the middle of this either. And once again, let me say I had 2 or 3 other guys that are credible guys that share his opinion, and that's why we're talking about the full scale. So, having said that, this is what I would like to say. That is my opinion in rebuttal to that. I agree with him. I also still have my own point of view that I will continue to do things just like I'm doing them. The average engine that we have come in the door nowadays in my particular shop, my clientele is guys that are building straight rod engines. We're also building antiques or antique straight rod engines. So first of all, we don't do, in Ellis Machine Shop, we don't do machine work to anything that's not necessary, especially to blocks that are numbers matching engines or engines that are just getting old. And 440 Chryslers aren't around like they used to be. 455 Pontiacs aren't around like they used to be. You can only machine something so many times before it's no more good. So every engine job we do, I take that into consideration. We don't machine things we don't have to machine, but we check everything. We verify, we check for straightness, we check for round, we check for, you see my video on tolerance stack, how we go through and we precisely check all of our clearances. Now, we have engines that come in the door that there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. We got an antique Cadillac engine just came in the door, and it's 1962 vintage. The camshaft in it is in perfectly good shape. Now, there's a good possibility that maybe when we check it all out that there's other issues with it. I'm not expecting it to be. But when you're building engines for the average guy that are honestly 350 to 550 horsepower street engines, they're not, a lot of what I do is not super high-end work. It's general machine shop work. This is basic engine building 101 for us. We're doing the same thing today that I was doing 30 years ago. Nothing's changed with the exceptions of all of a sudden everybody across the board is having cam and lifter failure. So I don't understand why anybody who wants to build an engine that if they're building something super high end, they don't usually use an OEM block. They're not going to be using a flat tappet camshaft unless by some chance they're in some form of circle track racing that requires it. But the average guy just wants to put in a cam. This week, and this week alone, we've had guys contact me about one engine in particular, 16 lifters on a big block Ford, roller lifters. Only one of them is spongy. It's bleeding down. Okay, that has nothing to do with the machine work. Once the oil travels through the lifter and out the push rod, that lifter is pumped up. It ain't supposed to bleed down. I have personally experienced when we shut off engines, within 2 minutes you can go through and push on the push rod side of every rocker arm and they spring up and down where they've completely lost their prime. That is a mistake. I've spoke to lifter companies that produce those lifters and they said to me, yeah, that don't sound right. That was their professional response. They know they got a problem. We have been doing the same thing we've been doing, not to beat the same dead horse over and over. I have another gentleman who just contacted me. He had a perfectly good running small block Chevy in his pickup truck. All he wanted to do was put an RV cam in it, like so many guys do. He took the intake off of it, he pulled the front of the engine off, and he slid a new cam in it. And within 20 minutes, it's wiped out. Now, I know a lot of you guys can turn around and say, oh, well, he has something wrong in the valve springs. RV cams are built to be user-friendly. If you don't put the right springs on them, they don't experience coil bind. They just don't run as good as they could. They're usually, because a lot of times guys are running old springs that are weak. That doesn't wipe camshafts out. We've had the experience of camshafts wiping out in 15, 20, 30 minutes for many, many people. Right before we did this video, I was just on the phone with another gentleman, same exact scenario. And so it all comes down to this. I'm personally doing all I can do with some of my engines to wait out some of this mess. I don't think it's a coincidence that the shelves went empty thanks to COVID, and then right after COVID, when the parts start coming in, the engine started wiping out. That's my take on all this. I am using up old stock. I've had a lot of old lifters that are sitting around here that's been sitting in my shop for so many years that I buy out old stock sometimes, and they've been sitting on a shelf that I haven't touched, and now we're taking them completely apart and cleaning them inside and out to make sure that the oil and grease, that assembly lube that was in them, hasn't broken down, it hasn't gelled. Just cleaning them up, putting them back together. I'm using up all my old stock. I've bought some old stock out. I think switching to a roller camshaft makes really good sense, because they're not losing camshafts. They're having tapping problems. They're bleeding down. But here's what really makes me mad, guys. These companies that are selling these junk lifters and camshafts, that the average guy is going to spend $200 to $300 to put this in his engine. So now everybody's saying, just go to a roller and get it over with. Okay, so now you go to a roller and you reward these bums by, instead of spending $200 to $300 with them, by spending $750 to $1,000 with them. I'm tongue-tied. I don't want to reward companies for selling me junk products. That just seems to be like it's the wrong way to go. These guys shouldn't make more money next year because they screwed us all over this year. But unfortunately, that's probably the way it's going to go for a lot of you fellas. And I can't say I blame you. In all honesty, I'll probably follow suit. I'm probably going to put a lot more roller cams in this year as I used to. But when I have a guy comes in the shop and he's got an old car and he wants to drive it to cruises, he wants it to rumble and roar, he wants it to sound healthy, and he's not an all-out drag racer, and he's got an engine that's 350 to 500 cubic inch, and all he actually wants is a car to get to and from, light the tires up once in a while and have a little fun when he's pulling on and off the expressway. It just don't seem fair that we have to go in there and raise his ticket price on his engine so much higher just because the cam and lifters that we always put in, and we never had issues with them before, that we're going to have to switch to a roller now. It also doesn't seem fair that we would have to go in and go into a block and reline bore a cam tunnel and indexed all the lifters on every single job we're doing, whether it's a stock cam or high performance. Now, I'm absolutely certain that the gentleman I was referring to, he's right. I'm sure he's not lying to me. I'm sure he's not even exaggerating. He's had no problems to this point, and I'll say a little prayer for him that he doesn't, because I've spent a lot of money on making things right on a couple of customers that I probably shouldn't have had to, but I did. And it's just what we're dealing with right now. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. I've got 2 other videos out on this, on hydraulic lifter failure, part 1 and part 2. This is part 3. I hope this is the last time we have to talk about this. I'm not going to keep beating this dead horse over and over. The only reason I'm bringing this up is, like I said, we had an opposing point of view that made really good sense. I also have a video on hydraulic lifter adjustment, how I make it simple for guys that don't understand engines real well. We also have a video on clean means clean that really applies to putting your engine back together to make sure that you have no failure of any kind, including cam and lifters. So there's a few things that'll help you. And our next wave of videos that we're going into, we're going to start off, and I'm going to start with an engine, and I'm going to show you the steps that I go through when I build an engine. And I'm going to show you what I've done on every single one, and how we go. And we're going to go through, and we're going to start with the oil and system. We're going to talk about cleaning the block, and then we're going into valve train. We're not doing crank rods, pistons, and all that right now. We're going to talk about proper fit of cam bearings. We're going to talk about camshafts being bent right out of the box. Believe it or not, guys, seen a lot of it. We'll talk about that in the video. We're going to talk about proper push rod length. We're going to talk about rocker arm geometry. We're going to talk about valve spring pressure. We're going to talk about lifter bores, miking the lifter bores. We're going to talk about all the things that I do on every single engine, right up to the point that I adjust the valves and I set the preload, and then I prime my engines and I say, okay, this is done. I'm satisfied with this. I'm going to show you everything that I do, and I don't know how many videos this is going to take. And I may bounce in and out from block to block on different engines and show you different things about different motors, because we're here to educate, not entertain. And I'm going to try to teach you what I would be teaching any intern that came to work for me in my shop. One of my greenhorn apprentice, and I want them to pick up and follow in my footsteps. I will show you what I'm going to do there. So we're going to have a lot of videos, and some of them will be short, some of them will be long. So you can do me a favor by liking and sharing all these pages, subscribing to my YouTube channel. That all helps us out. And the reason we don't release videos as faster than we do is because these things are overwhelming with the response we get, and I still work in this shop. So yeah, you got to understand, I juggle everything. So thanks for tuning in, and we're not going to talk about this anymore unless something new comes up. So we're just going to go right into the tech videos. So thanks for following. We'll see you soon.